Hey everyone, this is your boy Feltouch here, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Monday Manchester City podcast. Thank you for joining me once again, and today we're going to be talking about loads of things which are happening. Of course, we had the transfer deadline day the other day. We've got international fixtures. City players have been involved in those games. Also, a few bits of injury news, and also previewing the upcoming game next weekend on Saturday. I believe that game is against Liverpool. Really big game, that one, especially after their fantastic win the other day against Arsenal. So first of all, let's kick things off by talking about the transfer market and Manchester City. There's a lot of things happening on the deadline day, especially the news around Alexis Sanchez. Now, Manchester City tabled 2 offers for Sanchez on deadline day, the second one being accepted of £60 million. Unfortunately, though, for City's perspective, the deal did not go through, mainly because Arsenal just didn't have the time. I think it seems like Thomas Lemar, although they had a £92 million offer accepted for the Frenchman, he wasn't really interested in joining Arsenal by the sounds of things. He obviously thought he could do a lot better than what Arsenal were willing to offer, despite the huge amounts of money. And also, I think that Arsenal probably bottled it a little bit. I don't think they actually believed that a deal for £92 million would be accepted. So at the end of the day, City have been left without a centre-back and also without the man himself, Sanchez. But there was quite a few of players going out the door, especially Wilfried Boney. I think he was the biggest, £12.5 million. He left Manchester City. There was a number of loan deals for some of the younger players as well. I think that Kean Bryan went on loan to Oldham, as a few other younger lads as well. Nothing really huge to talk about from that sort of perspective. There was also a couple other moves as well to talk about during that week. Jason Denayer went back on loan to Galatasaray. Another move as well for Patrick Roberts going to Celtic. I think that was always going to happen despite the misgivings surrounding it from my personal perspective. And also there was an offer tabled for Eliakim Mangala from Crystal Palace, around £23 million that offer on deadline day. City actually accepted the offer, but Eliakim Mangala decided to turn the offer down, believing that he would perhaps be involved in City's squad, or feeling simply that Crystal Palace wasn't the right move for him. So in the end, he stayed at Manchester City. And it seems like a strange one, because City, for me, were probably delighted to take that sort of money for him. I can't see him starting many games this season, despite the fact that he has been named in the Premier League squad, has been named in the Champions League squad as well, so perhaps there could be some game time at some point as a backup defender for Eliakim Mangala. Turns out the City in the end perhaps were not as interested, or not £30 million interested in Jonny Evans, because no offer was made for him. But now, after the transfer window, just assessing the City squad, looking at what we have, and whether I believe that the players that we have now are good enough in order to help us win the league, I still think there are some holes in City's team. I still think that if we were able to sell Eliakim Mangala, we could perhaps bring in Jonny Evans. Whether he was the right man for the job, I simply do not know. He knows the league a lot better than Eliakim Mangala. He's a lot sturdier, a lot less error-prone, I'd say, than Eliakim Mangala. But that deal obviously didn't go in. So we're still stuck with the defenders, centre-halves, which we had last season. On top of that, I still think that we needed a big striker. I think Fernando Llorente would have been the man to go for. Despite the fact that he's got a broken elbow, is still going to be out for another couple of months. Spurs decided to snap him up, believing that he adds a little bit more different. I think he's the plan B striker they were aiming for, and I still think he's the plan B striker City should have gone for. So he went in around for around £50 million at the end of the day, and I think that probably was a relatively large amount of money. I think City could have snapped him up for a little bit less if they really were interested in him. It was a deal which should have been happening a long time ago, in my personal opinion, to sign Llorente. Obviously, City decided that he wasn't good enough, or simply wasn't going to suit Guardiola's style, but for me, he would be a perfect plan B striker, someone to have on the bench to give you an option in certain games like the Bournemouth game the other day, where you can lump a ball into the box and see what happens. So it was a really eventful transfer deadline day, but at the end of the day, it seems like City are still going to be going in for Sanchez. Whether it's in January, where we're going to be potentially looking at getting him on a free transfer, or whether we'll just confirm the deal in January and see what happens and come in at the end of the season. Now, there's a couple of worries with this. It's simply the fact that City are lacking another striker, because we've only really got 2, Aguero and Jesus, and I think there are some disadvantages in that. Certainly that Sanchez is a quality striker. He's proved himself to be a better finisher over the last year than Aguero, and possibly Jesus as well, and I think that he could have perhaps been a real marquee signing for this Manchester City side. Despite all the money we spent over the summer, I think he would have been really really, really one of the biggest transfers we could have made this summer. On top of that, it does save us £60 million though, which is always a positive, especially with the certain financial fair play things which are coming into factors. And also, there could be a worry that he could go to another club if he is left down to this 6-month contract, or could have a change in heart and decide to stay at Arsenal. But he is also a possibility that City could sign him for a fee in January. That could happen, but I really do doubt that would happen, especially because of the fact that Sanchez really does seem to want to leave Arsenal as soon as possible. So we'll have to see how that deal pans out. But at the end of the day, we haven't really lost a main player. We didn't lose Aguero. We didn't lose Sterling, as was rumoured as part of the deal, in order to try and bring in Alexis Sanchez. That was just complete nonsense. I simply do not believe that that was ever an equation in any Manchester City players, in any of the Manchester City's boards or the people who negotiate Chixi Bagiristein's thoughts, especially Guardiola, who's always talked about how good Raheem Sterling is and how much he believes he's an integral player in the squad. And I think it would be pretty stupid to sell him, considering the fact that he scored 2 goals already this season. I think it'd be a pretty weird decision to do, especially, and it seems that City board immediately called Sterling after the sort of new rumours came out and just told him, well, this isn't really going to happen, you were never going to be factored in this sort of deal, don't worry, sunshine. So deadline day is completed. We've got a fairly decent squad. Is it good enough to compete with the likes of Manchester United? Only time will tell. So, City have also announced their Champions League squad this last couple of days. No real surprises. There's a 21-man list, including Claudio Bravo, Edison and Aro Muric as the 3 goalkeepers. The defenders are Danilo, Kompany, Mangala, Mendy, Nicholas Otamendi, John Stones and Kyle Walker. And in midfield, Fabian Delph, Kevin De Bruyne, Fernandinho, Gundogan, Sané, Sterling, Bernardo Silva, David Silva and Yaya Toure, with Sergio Aguero and Gabriel Jesus also included. Also, City can draw on players from the academy as long as they were born after the 1st of January 1996 and have played for the club for around an uninterrupted period of 2 years. So that includes people like your Tosin Adebayoros, for example, if he were to be included in the Manchester City squad. Someone like Phil Foden, Brahim Diaz as well, those sort of players. So it's a fairly decent squad. We haven't got the problem of previous years, and it's that the City did used to have a 19-man squad due to financial fair play restrictions. So City have been helped out a little bit just by financial problems and stuff which have happened in the past. We've now got ourselves the full 21-man list squad. So on the topic of financial fair play, La Liga president Javier Tebas has reported Manchester City and PSG to UEFA, underlining the fact that both of these clubs are being funded by state aid, and it therefore distorts European competitions and creates an inflationary spiral that is irreparably harming the football industry. It's a huge, huge claim, but UEFA have said it is not investigating Manchester City, although it is looking at Paris Saint-Germain. Both of the clubs have spent a massive, massive amount of money. Of course, City are being backed by the Abu Dhabi royal family, and PSG are backed by Qatar. So it's a really interesting situation. City this summer have spent £215 million, whereas PSG have made some massive, massive moves, bringing in Neymar for £200 million and Kylian Mbappe for £165 million, which is going to be happening next summer. Both huge, huge amounts of money. But at the end of the day, it seems like City have been able to recoup a lot of money as well. We've had a net spend of around £130 million after selling people like Kelechi, Wilfred Boney, Aaron Moy, for example. They're some of the bigger transfers. So City are in the green, apparently, it seems. Now, it seems a really, really strange claim to make, especially from a La Liga president, especially because of the fact that down the years, let's be honest with ourselves, La Liga teams have been throwing money around. Every team has done it. If you look at 15, 20 years ago, La Liga teams were throwing money around like no man's business. If you look at deals like Luis Figo to Real Madrid, at the time that was €62 million worth. That's a huge, huge sum of money. I mean, it's a strange, strange thing to be able to report them, because at the end of the day, La Liga teams have been throwing big money around for a long, long time. For example, you look at the Gareth Bale transfer, that was around €100 million. Cristiano Ronaldo, €94 million in 2009. No English team was paying those sort of fees at that time, so it seems a little strange that it's only when it's sort of starting to work against La Liga that these sort of clubs are starting to complain. On top of that, we're ignoring the fact that there are several teams in Spain with the name Real, meaning royal, beforehand. So surely does that make them state-sponsored? There's been plenty of accusations throughout La Liga history that Real Madrid were always the favoured team, particularly under the rulership of General Franco, let's not forget. So you could perhaps say that some of the best teams in Spain throughout the history, your Real Deportivo La Coruña, your Real Murcia, Real Zaragoza, Real Madrid, are they state-sponsored? I mean, I think it's a little bit strange that Real Madrid is also a club which gets tax breaks from the Spanish government, is able to then have arguments saying that the Premier League teams, their spending is unfair. I think it's a very, very strange situation, I have to say, and very, very contradictory. Now, this weekend, City are playing against Liverpool, a team in red-hot fire, still unbeaten so far this season, despite them dropping points on the first game of the season against Watford, and they, I have to say, are looking pretty decent, especially going forward. Their front three has been absolutely deadly so far this season. Mane, Firmino, and also Mohamed Salah, who's looking like an absolute steal, must I add. Very, very quick, great on the counter-attack, and these are the sort of teams which, especially in the past, have always troubled Manchester City. You look at those front three, and you can now even go ahead and throw Coutinho in the mix. He's been playing for Brazil. Whether he wants to play for Liverpool again, it's a different situation. I suspect that he will be involved in the squad this weekend. And in terms of the entire Liverpool squad going forward, they're looking decent. Of course, they just brought in Oxlade-Chamberlain. Whether he's worth the £35 million plus which they paid for him is a different story. But still, he's still a good player, a nice addition to their squad. And it shows that they've got real ambition in wanting to try and push on and win the league this season. And I think this will be one of the toughest games of the entire season. They're in good form, especially going forward. They scored loads of goals against Arsenal. It's just the way they scored the goals as well. Yes, Arsenal are terrible defensively, but still, the manner in which they scored the goals was hugely, hugely convincing, and they could have won by more than 4 goals. It could have been 5, 6, 7-0. It's ridiculous. They've still got a few injuries, still missing Adam Lallana, Nathaniel Klein, and the legend himself, Adam Bogdan. Not that he would be included in their squad. There's still a couple of things which is suspect about Liverpool's team, of course, and that's defensively. Whether their defence has really improved from last season is a different story. They're playing Moreno a bit at left back, and he's always a little bit suspect. Defensively, the partnership of Lovren and Matip, there's still lots of areas where they can improve defensively, and they've only got Ragnar Klavan as the man backing them up. And at right back, they've shown some decent quality so far this season. I think Joe Gomez has played at right back, as well as the young lad as well. He's come through really well, Trent Alexander-Arnold. So there's plenty of quality in their side, especially pace. That is one thing which really favours Liverpool, and they will press City very high up the pitch. And the last couple of games, I've got to say, City have started all the games very, very slowly. The Bournemouth game especially, and also the Brighton game. So you won't be seeing City being able to make these little sideways passes the entire game. Liverpool are going to be pressing City the entire fixture. They'll really come up to the Etihad and have a go at us. And I think that if City play 5 at the back, City could struggle. Liverpool have broken down teams which have played 5 at the back very easily so far this season. They did it against Hoffenheim, they've done it against Arsenal. They don't struggle playing against teams with 5 at the back. So it'll be interesting to see which sort of team City puts out for this weekend. There could be some sort of rumour knocking about that Vincent Kompany is not going to play this weekend. He allegedly picked up a knock this weekend playing for Belgium, and he didn't feature in a game against Greece last night either. So it'll be interesting to see whether he's involved, and if he's not, that's a huge, huge miss for City, and it really does go to show whether we'll be able to have the quality with John Stones and Otamendi both playing centre-back, whether we go back to the 4 or whether Mangala comes into the side. I think it's going to be a really, really tough game, and it will be one of the biggest games this season in my personal belief. Both teams great at going forward, defensively suspect at times, so it really could be an interesting game. Liverpool every year comes to the Etihad and have a go, and that is, I think, one of the best ways of having a go at taking on City, is teams which turn up and always have a go. You look at the games with Pellegrini, we were very poor. Last season, again, Liverpool turned up and did a bit of a job on us. So this year, City have got to be wary, in my personal belief, of playing against Liverpool. It'll be a really interesting fixture. How we get on, only time will see. Going forward, we've got lots and lots of quality. Defensively, as I said, we have struggled at times, but even still, a really, really enticing fixture this weekend. Lots of players have been away on international break. People can still get injured. There's still games coming up. Some of the City players have been involved. For example, Raheem Sterling, he only played 45 minutes against Malta. To be honest with you, he was absolutely shocking, along with lots of other England players, but he really did stand out as being terrible in that fixture. Kyle Walker looked good, but there's still lots of other games for City players to get injured in. Kevin De Bruyne came away unscathed from the Belgian game last night. He looked very, very promising in that fixture. I watched that game. Apart from that, a few of the City players haven't been involved in international break. You look at Benjamin Mendy, I should say, getting some more fitness. Gundogan's very close to knocking back on the door on Manchester City's side. And you know what? Fabian Delph might play. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. It's difficult in a way to sort of predict Liverpool's team just because they have got a lot of quality and the fact that Klopp does like rotating his side. Either way, it'll be a really, really attacking game. This weekend's going to be exciting. I cannot wait for it. We'll have to see how City get on. Really, really big fixture. Game on. Thank you so much for joining me once again on this Blue Monday Manchester City podcast. Thank you all for joining me. Arrivederci.